The notification flashes across my screen at exactly 8:58 a.m. Your credentials have been suspended. I'm standing outside the executive conference room at Apex Meridian Systems, 2 minutes before presenting our biggest contract of the year. $22 million. 6 months of work. All riding on the analytics model I've been perfecting for Helixion Therapeutics. Inside the glass-walled room, I can see Caleb Mercer plugging in his laptop. He's my boss Martin's younger brother, recently hired as a strategic consultant despite having zero experience in data systems. Caleb looks up, catches my eye through the glass, and gives me a small nod. Not friendly. Just acknowledging that I'm watching. Leadership decided we need a single voice in the room today, he says as he walks past me toward the conference room entrance. I'll handle the presentation. My badge won't scan. The red light blinks mockingly as I try again. The presentation I've spent countless late nights building is now loaded on his screen. Every slide, every calculation, every risk assessment that took me months to develop. But there's something Caleb doesn't know. Something buried in slide 17 that could destroy everything. The doors close with a soft click, leaving me standing in the hallway like a stranger in my own company. Through the glass wall, I watch Caleb shake hands with the Helixion executives. He introduces himself confidently as the lead systems architect, my exact title for the past 4 years. The clients nod politely, settling into their chairs with notebooks and tablets ready. Caleb begins with slide 1, discussing market projections and competitive advantages. His voice carries clearly through the room's speakers. He sounds professional, authoritative. For a moment, I almost believe he knows what he's talking about. But I built every single chart he's showing. I know which data points required 3 different validation models. I know which assumptions took weeks to verify with our vendor partners. Caleb is reading from my notes, speaking my words, presenting my analysis as his own. The Helixion team looks impressed. Their CFO, Alexandra Bennett, leans forward with interest as Caleb explains the forecasting methodology. She asks a few basic questions about market penetration and timeline assumptions. Easy questions. Questions any decent consultant could answer by reading the speaker notes I wrote. My chest tightens, but it's not anger I'm feeling. It's something worse. It's the sick realization that this might actually work. That 6 months of my expertise might be successfully stolen in a single morning. That competence doesn't always win. Then I remember slide 17. And I start counting. Caleb reaches slide 10. Then 12. He's moving through the presentation smoothly, hitting every talking point I carefully scripted. The Helixion executives are taking notes, asking follow-up questions that show genuine interest. This isn't just a courtesy meeting anymore. They're seriously considering our proposal. Alexandra Bennett interrupts during slide 15. Before we move forward, can you walk us through the cost structure breakdown? Specifically the regional integration variables. This is it. The moment I've been dreading and anticipating. Caleb pauses, clicking back to slide 14, then forward to 16. He's looking for the integration data, but it's not clearly labeled. I embedded those calculations within the margin analysis on slide 17. The regional variables they're built into our blended projection model, Caleb says, his voice slightly less confident than before. Bennett frowns. Blended how? We need to understand the underlying assumptions. Caleb clicks to slide 17. The slide I've been waiting for. The slide that contains a margin multiplier still referencing vendor costs from 18 months ago, before our primary supplier increased rates by 12%. I caught the error yesterday during final testing, but my system access was revoked before I could sync the correction. As you can see here, Caleb says, gesturing toward the screen, our cost projections account for all major variables. But they don't. And Bennett is starting to notice. These numbers don't add up, Bennett says, pulling out her tablet and tapping quickly across the screen. Your infrastructure costs assume pricing that's significantly below current market rates. The room shifts. I can feel the energy changing from interested consideration to concerned scrutiny. Caleb's confident posture falters as he realizes he's stepped into technical territory he doesn't understand. The pricing reflects our negotiated vendor agreements, he says, but his voice wavers. He's improvising now, trying to explain calculations he never built. Which vendor? Asks Dr. James Wright, Helixion's head of operations. Because we use similar infrastructure, and these rates are at least 15% below what we're seeing. Caleb clicks frantically through slides, looking for supporting documentation that doesn't exist. At least, not in the version he's presenting. The corrected version exists only on my personal backup drive, along with the updated vendor contracts and revised cost projections. Bennett stands up slowly. I think we need some clarification before proceeding. These discrepancies could impact the entire ROI model. That's when I see Martin Mercer slip out of his office and walk directly toward the conference room. His face is pale. He knows something has gone wrong. Through the glass, I watch him make eye contact with Caleb, who gives an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Martin's jaw tightens. Then he turns and walks straight toward me. Nicole, did you build this model correctly? Martin's voice is quiet but strained. He's standing close enough that I can smell his coffee breath and see the sweat forming at his hairline. Yes, I answer simply. Then why is it falling apart in there? I could lie. I could pretend ignorance, let Caleb crash and burn on his own. But that would mean losing the Helixion contract entirely, and despite everything, I don't want to see the company fail. Because you revoked my access before the final correction could sync to the presentation file, I tell him. Martin's silence confirms what I suspected. He thought removing me from the equation would eliminate any risk of me undermining his brother. Instead, he created the exact problem he was trying to avoid. The error is in slide 17. I continue. The margin multiplier still references old vendor pricing. It's off by 12%, which cascades through the entire cost structure. Martin runs his hand through his hair, glancing back at the conference room where Caleb is still struggling to answer increasingly pointed questions from the Helixion team. Can you fix it? He asks. I can. But I'll need system access and 10 minutes with the clients to explain the correction. He stares at me for a long moment, weighing his options. Family loyalty versus business survival. Personal pride versus professional necessity. Finally, he says 4 words that change everything. Fix this. Now. Off by 12%, which cascades through the entire cost structure. Martin runs his hand through his hair, glancing back at the conference room where Caleb is still struggling to answer increasingly pointed questions from the Helixion team. Can you fix it? He asks. I can. But I'll need system access and 10 minutes with the clients to explain the correction. He stares at me for a long moment, weighing his options. Family loyalty versus business survival. Personal pride versus professional necessity. Finally, he says 4 words that change everything. Fix this. Now. I walk into the conference room as Caleb is attempting to explain regional cost variations using vague terms like market dynamics and scalable efficiencies. The Helixion executives look frustrated. Bennett has her arms crossed, clearly losing patience with non-answers. Excuse the interruption, I say, addressing the room without looking at Caleb. I'm Nicole, the original architect of this model. There's a calculation error in the current presentation that I need to correct. No one apologizes for the confusion. No one explains why I wasn't presenting in the first place. Martin simply nods toward the projection screen, giving me tacit permission to proceed. I open my laptop and connect to the system using Martin's admin credentials. The corrected version of the presentation loads immediately. The issue is in our vendor cost assumptions, I explain, navigating to slide 17. Our primary infrastructure provider increased rates in March, but that change wasn't reflected in the version you just saw. I pull up the updated vendor contracts on screen, showing the actual current pricing. Then I recalculate the regional integration variables in real time, using the correct multiplier. The margins shift dramatically, still profitable, but significantly more realistic. This gives us a true ROI projection of 23.4% over 18 months, rather than the 31.8% shown in the previous version, I conclude. Bennett nods slowly, her expression shifting from frustration to cautious approval. Thank you, Nicole. This makes much more sense. Why wasn't this version presented initially? The question hangs in the air. No one answers. After the Helixion executives leave, promising to review our corrected proposal and respond within a week, Caleb approaches me in the hallway. His face is flushed, and he's clearly struggling to control his temper. Nicole, you made me look incompetent in there, he says, stepping closer than necessary. The numbers made you look incompetent, I reply calmly. I just corrected them. Don't play games with me. You knew about that error. You could have warned me before the meeting. I could have. If he had asked. If he had included me in the preparation. If he had acknowledged that presenting technical work requires understanding the technical details. I tried to sync the correction yesterday. I tell him. My access was revoked. Caleb's eyes narrow. You think fixing one slide makes you untouchable? You think Martin won't remember that you embarrassed family in front of clients? I don't respond, because I can see in his expression that he's already planning his next move. This isn't over for him. It's personal now. Enjoy your moment, Nicole, he says quietly. Because it's going to be your last. He walks away toward Martin's office, leaving me standing alone in the hallway. Through the glass walls, I can see him gesturing animatedly as he talks to his brother. Martin listens with his arms folded, occasionally glancing in my direction. I know I've won this battle. But watching Caleb's animated conversation with Martin, I realize the war is just beginning. Monday morning brings a new email in my inbox, organizational restructure, effective immediately. My title has been changed from lead systems architect to technical support specialist. No explanation provided. No discussion or warning. The demotion is subtle but significant. I'm no longer leading client-facing projects. Instead, I'm relegated to supporting other people's work, reviewing calculations, fact-checking presentations, providing technical backup for meetings I won't attend. Caleb, meanwhile, has been formally appointed as Director of Client Analytics. It's a newly created position that gives him authority over all external presentations and client relationships. His nameplate already sits outside the corner office that used to belong to our previous analytics director. But something interesting happens that first week. My email inbox starts filling with direct messages from Helixion Therapeutics. Not routed through Caleb or Martin, but sent specifically to my company address. Follow-up questions on the regional integration model. Need clarification on vendor cost assumptions. Additional data points for board presentation. The Helixion analysts have noticed something during their internal review. The numbers I corrected during the emergency presentation don't match the summary reports Caleb has been sending as follow-up documentation. Small discrepancies, but enough to raise questions. I respond to each inquiry carefully and factually. No editorial comments about leadership changes, organizational restructuring. Just mathematics and technical explanations. But someone at Helixion is documenting everything. And they're starting to notice a pattern. The pattern becomes clearer over the following weeks. Helixion's analysts keep requesting deeper technical clarification on specific aspects of our proposal. Each time, their questions reveal small but significant inconsistencies between Caleb's client-facing summaries and the underlying mathematical models. It's not that Caleb is intentionally misleading them. He simply doesn't understand the technical details well enough to explain them accurately. When asked about compound growth rates, he talks about accelerated market penetration. When questioned about risk variables, he responds with comprehensive scenario planning. The buzzwords sound professional, but they don't answer the actual questions. And Helixion's team includes several analysts with advanced degrees in data science. They know the difference between technical explanations and corporate speak. My responses, by contrast, are specific and detailed. I explain exactly how each calculation works, which assumptions drive the projections, and where the potential risks lie. I don't editorialize or criticize Caleb's summaries. I just provide the mathematical truth. Dr. Wright emails me directly on a Thursday afternoon, Nicole, your technical explanations have been extremely helpful. We're impressed by the depth of analysis in your original model. Would it be possible to schedule a brief call to discuss implementation timelines? I forward the email to Martin and Caleb, following proper protocol. But the request is clear. Helixion wants to talk to me, not to the newly appointed Director of Client Analytics. Caleb's response comes 30 minutes later. All client communications should be routed through my office. 2 months after the original presentation, Apex Meridian receives a new opportunity from Helixion. They want us to bid on a larger contract, a comprehensive analytics platform worth $48 million over 3 years. It's the kind of project that could define our company's future. Caleb insists on leading the proposal development personally. This time, he doesn't want any input from me during the preparation phase. No technical reviews, no calculation verification, no risk assessment. He's determined to prove he can handle major client work independently. I've got this covered, he tells Martin during a leadership meeting I'm not invited to attend. We don't need to overcomplicate things with too many voices. But I recognize the vendor they're planning to use for infrastructure support. It's the same company that caused problems on our last 2 projects, consistently over budget, frequently behind schedule, and notorious for unexpected implementation fees that appear after contracts are signed. I draft a detailed risk assessment memo, outlining the vendor's track record and suggesting alternative partners with better reliability ratings. 19 pages of documentation, complete with cost projections and timeline comparisons. I email it directly to Martin with a high-priority flag. The subject line reads, Critical Risk Assessment, Helixion Platform Proposal. Martin never responds. 3 days later, Caleb presents the proposal to Helixion's executive team, recommending the problematic vendor and signing a conditional agreement based on their optimistic projections. My memo sits unopened in Martin's inbox, ignored entirely. The Helixion platform project launches 6 weeks later with great fanfare. Caleb hosts a kick-off meeting with both internal teams and client representatives, presenting an ambitious timeline that promises full implementation in 8 months. I'm not invited to the kick-off meeting, but I receive the project summary documentation through our internal system. The projected costs exactly match the problematic vendor's initial quote, with no buffer for overruns or unexpected complications. The implementation timeline assumes perfect coordination between 5 different technical teams, with no allowance for integration delays or compatibility issues. It's the kind of schedule that looks impressive in PowerPoint but falls apart the moment reality intervenes. I don't say anything. I've learned that warnings from technical support specialists aren't welcome in strategic discussions. Instead, I quietly document everything. I save copies of the original timeline, the vendor agreements, and the cost projections. I create a folder labeled Helixion Platform, Risk Documentation, and store it on my personal drive. 3 weeks into the project, the first delays appear. Small ones initially, vendor equipment arriving 2 days late, software licenses taking longer to process than expected. Caleb dismisses these as minor coordination issues that won't impact the overall timeline. But by week 6, the delays are compounding. The vendor requests additional fees for custom integration work that wasn't included in their original quote. Software compatibility issues require expensive third-party solutions. The project budget increases by 15%, with no corresponding extension to the timeline. Helixion's project manager starts asking pointed questions about risk planning and contingency measures. We need an emergency review meeting, Bennett tells Martin during a Friday afternoon conference call. The project metrics don't match what we were promised during the proposal presentation. I'm not supposed to be on the call, but Martin patches me in at the last minute when Bennett specifically requests Nicole, the original model architect, to attend. Caleb objects, but Bennett's tone makes it clear this isn't negotiable. The timeline we agreed to assumed optimal conditions for every project phase. I explain when asked about the delays. Our risk assessment recommended building in buffer time for integration challenges, but that wasn't included in the final proposal. Caleb interrupts quickly. The vendor deviated from their specifications. This wasn't predictable based on their initial commitments. I could leave it there. Let Caleb's explanation stand unchallenged. But Bennett asks a direct question. Nicole, was this risk identified during your internal planning process? The room goes silent. Martin's face is unreadable. Caleb looks increasingly uncomfortable. I reach into my folder and pull out printed copies of my original risk assessment memo. The one Martin never responded to. The one that specifically flagged this vendor's history of cost overruns and timeline delays. Yes, I say simply. It was identified and documented before the proposal was submitted. Bennett takes the printed memo and scans the first page. Her expression shifts from frustration to something harder to read. This is dated 6 weeks before the contract was signed. Was this reviewed by project leadership? Martin's silence answers the question. The aftermath of that meeting is swift and uncomfortable. Helixion hires an independent auditor to review the entire project scope and timeline. They want to understand how such a significant risk was overlooked during proposal development. The audit report, delivered 3 weeks later, references my risk assessment memo repeatedly. It validates every concern I raised about vendor reliability, timeline assumptions, and cost projections. The auditor concludes that following my recommendations would have prevented 60% of the current delays and budget overruns. My name appears throughout the documentation as the analyst who identified and reported the risks. Caleb's name appears only in relation to the decision to proceed despite those warnings. Apex Meridian's board of directors receives a copy of the audit report. They begin asking uncomfortable questions about project oversight and risk management protocols. Specifically, they want to know why documented warnings from technical staff were ignored. Martin is forced to acknowledge publicly that my concerns were valid and should have been addressed. But family loyalty runs deep. Rather than admitting Caleb made a serious error in judgment, Martin frames it as a communication breakdown between departments. We're implementing new oversight protocols, he announces during the next board meeting. All major proposals will now require documented technical review and risk assessment sign-off. The new protocol sounds reasonable and responsible. But it comes with an important detail. All technical reviews must be approved by me before proposals can be submitted to clients. Caleb can still lead client relationships and presentations. But he can no longer ignore the technical foundation underlying those presentations. The new oversight protocol changes everything, though not in ways that are immediately obvious. Caleb can still call himself Director of Client Analytics. He still sits in the corner office and attends leadership meetings. But he can no longer summarize my technical work in vague, impressive-sounding language. Every calculation must be verified. Every risk assumption must be documented. Every cost projection must be supported by current vendor agreements and realistic timeline assessments. When clients ask technical questions, Caleb can't deflect with corporate buzzwords. He needs to provide specific, accurate answers. And increasingly, he struggles to do so. The change becomes apparent during our next major presentation, a logistics optimization project for regional healthcare systems. Caleb presents the overview confidently, discussing market opportunities and competitive advantages. But when the client's CFO asks about implementation methodology, Caleb hesitates. Our technical approach is comprehensive and scalable, he says, clicking through slides without finding the specific information being requested. Can you walk us through the actual process? The CFO presses. We need to understand how you'll integrate with our existing systems. Caleb looks uncomfortable. The technical implementation details are buried in documentation he never studied. He understands the high-level strategy but not the mechanics of how it actually works. Perhaps we should have Nicole, our technical lead, join this discussion, he finally suggests. For the first time in months, I'm invited back into a client presentation. Not to fix an emergency, but to provide the expertise that's necessary for serious business discussions. Regional Healthcare's technical team asks detailed questions about data security, system architecture, and integration protocols. Questions that require specific knowledge about how our solutions actually function rather than how they can be described in marketing language. I answer each question directly, explaining our methodology and walking through implementation steps. The client team takes notes and asks follow-up questions that show genuine technical understanding. This is exactly the level of detail we needed, their CTO says after an hour of discussion. When can we schedule a deeper technical review with Nicole and your team? I'll coordinate that directly, I respond, then glance at Caleb. Through proper channels, of course. The meeting ends positively, with Regional Healthcare requesting a formal proposal within 2 weeks. But the dynamic has shifted subtly. They're not asking for Caleb to lead the technical aspects of the relationship. They want to work with me. As we pack up our materials, Caleb is quiet. He knows what just happened, even if he doesn't want to acknowledge it. His role as Director of Client Analytics is becoming ceremonial. Clients are starting to understand that technical competence and impressive titles don't always go together. Good presentation, Nicole, he says finally, but his tone lacks conviction. Thank you, I reply. I'm glad we could give them the information they needed. It's a polite exchange, but we both understand the subtext. Competence has its own authority, regardless of organizational charts or office assignments. Word spreads quietly through our industry networks. Apex Meridian had restructured its technical leadership approach after some high-profile project challenges. The details remain internal, but competitors and potential clients start reaching out to me directly. A former colleague, now working at Vertex Analytics, sends me a LinkedIn message. Heard through the grapevine that Nicole's been doing some impressive work with healthcare optimization. Any interest in consulting opportunities? Another message comes from DataCore Solutions. We're expanding our analytics division and looking for senior architects with healthcare experience. Would love to chat with Nicole if you're open to new opportunities. For the first time in months, I realize I have options. The expertise that Apex Meridian has been taking for granted is valuable in the broader marketplace. My technical reputation exists independently of my internal job title. I don't respond to the recruiting messages immediately, but I save them in a folder labeled External Opportunities. Just knowing they exist changes how I think about my current situation. I'm not trapped by organizational politics or family loyalties. I'm a skilled professional with marketable expertise. If Apex Meridian doesn't fully value that contribution, other companies will. The psychological shift is subtle but significant. I stop feeling defensive about my reduced role and start feeling strategic about my next moves. The third major test comes 4 months later. Helixion Therapeutics returns with their largest project yet, a comprehensive data analytics platform that would integrate with multiple healthcare systems across 6 states. The contract value is $60 million over 5 years. Caleb insists on leading the proposal, but Helixion makes an unusual request. They want a live technical demonstration as part of the evaluation process. Not slides or summaries, but actual system functionality demonstrated in real time. We've learned from previous experiences that technical capabilities can be misrepresented in standard presentations, Bennett explains during the planning call. We need to see your systems working, not just described. Caleb's confidence wavers. Live demonstrations can't be scripted or rehearsed like presentations. They require deep understanding of how systems actually function, plus the ability to troubleshoot problems on the spot. I'll coordinate with our technical team, he tells Bennett, glancing nervously at me. But this time, Helixion makes their expectations explicit. We'd like the demonstration led by Nicole, the same analyst who's been providing our technical support. She seems to have the most comprehensive understanding of your capabilities. They're asking for me specifically, not the Director of Client Analytics, but the technical support specialist who actually built the systems they want to see. Caleb's face flushes slightly. Of course. We'll arrange whatever format works best for your evaluation. The demonstration is scheduled for the following Thursday in Helixion's main conference facility. 43 stakeholders will attend, including executives from 6 different healthcare systems and Helixion's entire technical review board. I spend the week preparing, not just reviewing our systems but anticipating every possible question and technical challenge. Live demonstrations are unforgiving. If something breaks or functions unexpectedly, There's no hiding behind polished slides or corporate buzzwords. Caleb attends the preparation meetings but contributes little beyond scheduling logistics. He knows he can't lead a technical demonstration, but his pride won't let him admit it publicly. Instead, he frames his role as strategic oversight while I handle the technical details. The day of the demonstration, we arrive at Heliction's facility an hour early for setup and testing. Everything functions perfectly during our private run-through. The systems respond quickly, the data integrations work seamlessly, and the user interface performs exactly as designed. But when the room fills with stakeholders and the formal presentation begins, Caleb insists on providing the opening remarks and high-level overview. It's his last attempt to maintain visible leadership of the client relationship. Today we'll show you how Apex Meridian's analytics platform can transform healthcare data management, he begins confidently. Then someone in the audience asks a specific question about data security protocols, and Caleb's prepared remarks become insufficient. Our security approach is comprehensive and follows all industry standards, he says, but the questioner presses for details about encryption methods and access controls. Caleb looks increasingly uncomfortable as the technical questions multiply. Perhaps we should move directly to the live demonstration with Nicole, Caleb finally suggests, gesturing toward me. I step forward and connect my laptop to the room's projection system. For the next 90 minutes, I walk the entire audience through our platform's functionality. I show them how data flows between systems, how security protocols protect sensitive information, and how healthcare providers can generate custom analytics reports. When Dr. Wright asks about integration challenges with legacy hospital systems, I pull up a live connection to our test environment and demonstrate the compatibility protocols in real time. When Bennett questions scalability for high-volume data processing, I run performance benchmarks on screen, showing response times under various load conditions. The audience asks increasingly sophisticated questions. How does the system handle data anomalies? What happens during network interruptions? Can reports be customized for different regulatory requirements? I answer each question by showing them actual system responses rather than describing theoretical capabilities. When someone identifies a potential workflow issue, I modify the configuration on the spot and demonstrate the improved process. By the end of the session, several audience members are taking notes not just on our platform's features but on my specific answers and technical approaches. Nicole, this is exactly the kind of thorough technical evaluation we needed, Bennett says as the demonstration concludes. Thank you for the comprehensive walkthrough. She's thanking me directly, not addressing the room in general or acknowledging Caleb's opening remarks. The follow-up call comes 3 days later. Heliction's evaluation committee has completed their review and reached a decision about the analytics platform contract. We'd like to move forward with Apex Meridian, Bennett announces, but we have a specific implementation requirement. Martin and Caleb both lean forward with anticipation. We want Nicole, the technical lead from Thursday's demonstration, to serve as our primary point of contact throughout the project. We've been consistently impressed by her expertise and communication style. The room goes very quiet. Bennett is asking for me to lead the relationship, not just support it from behind the scenes. That can certainly be arranged, Martin responds carefully. We always assign our best technical resources to major client implementations. Good. We'd also like to discuss bringing Nicole on site for the initial setup phase. This is a complex integration, and we want someone who can handle unexpected technical challenges in real time. Caleb's jaw tightens slightly, but he doesn't object. He can't object, because Heliction's $60 million contract gives them significant leverage over staffing decisions. We'll work out the logistics, Martin promises. After the call ends, Martin looks at me directly for the first time in months. Not as a subordinate who needs managing, but as a strategic asset who drives major business results. Congratulations, Nicole, he says simply. But we both know this isn't just about congratulations. It's about recognizing that technical expertise has its own form of authority, regardless of organizational titles or family relationships. 6 months later, I'm working on site at Heliction's headquarters, leading a team of 12 technical specialists through the most complex data integration project in our company's history. The analytics platform is functioning flawlessly, processing millions of healthcare records daily across 6 state healthcare networks. Caleb remains Director of Client Analytics at Apex Meridian, but his role has evolved into something more ceremonial. He attends board meetings and industry conferences, representing the company at high-level strategic discussions. But when clients need technical work done, they call me. The shift in authority happened gradually, without dramatic confrontations, organizational announcements. It was simply a matter of competence finding its appropriate level of influence. Clients learned to distinguish between people who can talk about technical solutions and people who can actually deliver them. Regional healthcare systems hired us for 3 additional projects based on their positive experience with our logistics optimization work. DataCore Solutions stopped trying to recruit me after we landed their biggest competitor as a client. Vertex Analytics reached out to propose a joint venture rather than competition. My business card still read Technical Support Specialist, but industry contacts introduced me as Nicole, the analytics architect behind Apex Meridian's recent successes. Titles become irrelevant when your work speaks for itself. Martin and I have developed a working relationship based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical authority. He handles business development and strategic partnerships. I handle technical delivery and client satisfaction. We both do what we do best. The final validation comes during Apex Meridian's annual board meeting, where our financial results are presented to investors and stakeholders. The numbers are impressive. 47% revenue growth, 96% client retention, and a project pipeline worth over $200 million. Board members ask detailed questions about our competitive advantages and growth strategy. Martin provides polished answers about market positioning and strategic vision. But when they ask about operational capabilities and technical differentiation, he defers to me. Our technical leadership has been the key driver of client satisfaction and contract renewals, Martin explains. I'd like Nicole, our senior architect, to walk you through our capabilities and methodology. It's the first time he's publicly acknowledged my role as senior architect rather than technical support specialist. The promotion is informal but unmistakable. I present for 40 minutes, explaining our technical approach, client results, and competitive advantages. The board members ask sophisticated questions about scalability, innovation pipeline, and talent retention. They understand that Apex Meridian's success isn't just about sales and marketing. It's about technical competence and delivery excellence. After the meeting, the board chair approaches me privately. Impressive presentation, Nicole. It's clear that technical expertise drives a lot of your client relationships. Have you considered pursuing more formal leadership responsibilities? The question catches me off guard. 6 months ago, I was being demoted to make room for Caleb's ambitions. Now board members are suggesting I consider expanded authority. I'm focused on delivering excellent results for our clients, I respond diplomatically. Leadership roles will develop naturally from that foundation. 2 weeks after the board meeting, Helixion Therapeutics makes an unexpected offer. They want to hire me directly, either as an employee or an independent consultant, to lead their newly created analytics division. We're building something completely new, Bennett explains during our confidential phone conversation. A healthcare analytics company that prioritizes technical excellence over corporate politics. We want Nicole to lead it, someone who understands both the mathematics and the practical implementation challenges. The offer is substantial: 30% salary increase, equity participation, and authority to build the technical team from scratch. It's the kind of opportunity that comes along rarely in any career. You don't have to decide immediately, Bennett continues, but we'd like to start the new division within 6 months. The question is whether you're interested in leading genuine technical innovation rather than just supporting other people's visions. I tell her I need time to consider the implications. Leaving Apex Meridian would mean walking away from 4 years of relationship building and technical development. But it might also mean escaping organizational constraints that limit what I can accomplish. That evening, I review my career progression over the past year. From being excluded from client presentations to leading $60 million technical implementations. From having my access revoked to being specifically requested by name by major clients. The trajectory is clear. Competence creates its own opportunities, regardless of internal politics or family loyalties. I request a private meeting with Martin to discuss Helixion's offer. Not to negotiate or threaten, but to have an honest conversation about career development and mutual expectations. They want me to lead their analytics division, I explain. It's a significant opportunity, but I wanted to discuss it with you before making any decisions. Martin's reaction is measured but concerned. He knows losing me would impact more than just technical delivery. It would affect client relationships, project continuity, and competitive positioning. What would it take to keep you here, Nicole? He asks directly. It's a fair question that deserves a thoughtful answer. Formal recognition of the technical leadership role I'm already performing. Authority to build and manage the technical team. Direct participation in strategic planning rather than just tactical execution. Martin considers this for several minutes. That would mean significant organizational changes. Caleb's role would need to be redefined. Caleb is good at client relationship management and strategic communication, I acknowledge. But major technical projects need technical leadership. We've learned that over the past year. Martin nods slowly. Let me discuss this with the board. We can't afford to lose you, but we also need to handle family dynamics carefully. It's the first time he's openly acknowledged that family loyalty has been influencing business decisions. The conversation feels like progress, regardless of what decision ultimately emerges. 3 months later, Apex Meridian announces a new organizational structure. I'm promoted to Chief Technical Officer, with authority over all technical operations and client delivery. Caleb becomes Vice President of Business Development, focusing on relationship management and strategic partnerships. The restructure acknowledges what clients and board members already understood. Technical expertise and business development require different skill sets and different leadership approaches. Both roles are important, but they serve different functions within the organization. Helixion's offer helped clarify my market value, but staying at Apex Meridian turned out to be the right decision. Rather than building something new from scratch, I can leverage 4 years of relationship development and technical innovation. The real victory wasn't getting revenge on Caleb or proving Martin wrong. It was demonstrating that competence eventually finds its appropriate level of authority, regardless of organizational politics or family relationships. 6 months after my promotion, we land the largest contract in company history, a comprehensive healthcare analytics platform for a consortium of 12 hospital systems across 3 states. The contract value exceeds $100 million over 7 years. During the celebration dinner, Martin makes a toast to Nicole and our entire team, to technical excellence and strategic partnership, to doing the work that matters. He doesn't mention the presentation that started everything, or the access credentials that were revoked, or the hidden error in slide 17. But we both remember how this journey began. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being right. And sometimes being right is its own reward.